Hi, today I'm going to show you how to make some abstract artwork inspired by artist Julie Mehretu. So you can notice here there's a lot of different lines and shapes and colors. So our goal for today is to mix our crayons with a watercolor wash. So we're going to go through this step by step together. So feel free to watch and pause as we go along. So the first thing we want to do is we want to make our artwork by starting off with oil pastels or crayons, whatever you have on hand. And we're going to make the marks on paper. I'm going to go ahead and transfer the camera down so that you can see my workspace. Now I have some crayons here and I have a few colors, and I'm simply going to start drawing. I'm going to make a bunch of different marks onto my paper. I'm going to use different colors, and I'm just going to make some scribbles using my different colors here. Maybe I'll get some zigzags in, I'll get some different types of lines, maybe some straight lines, maybe some crossed lines here. And I want to make sure that I fill up my whole paper with different marks. Get a lot of energy going, making sure my marks are big and round and they're all different. So I'm just gonna spread in some more color here until I feel like I have filled in majority of my paper. Now I like what I have going on here, but I think I'm going to layer. I'm gonna layer a few more colors on top of each other. And that way we get a little more pops of color throughout our artwork. So we can see this line mingling with the red line. And let's see what else. Maybe I'll add some more color. I'll add some pink to this side. And then get a little more color into the edges. Make sure that we fill up those edges. Now I'm just making some zigzag marks. You can make loopy lines. You can make straight lines. You could make shapes if you'd like. Maybe I'll add some circles in here. Now the goal is to make it look abstract. Now abstract means it doesn't look like reality. It's made up. So I'm going to go ahead and continue to fill up my paper with crayon marks, different lines and different shapes. So this is what I got so far, and I'm pretty happy with it. So I think I'm going to move on to the next step. I'm going to put my crayons to the side, and now I'm going to add what is called a watercolor wash. A watercolor wash is when you add watercolors to your artwork and you fill the whole paper. You fill the whole paper. So although I started with white paper, you can see here, I filled up my whole paper with paint. Now you're going to notice that the paint will not wash away your crayon marks. The crayon marks are made out of wax, and wax and water do not mix. So you'll notice the wax will preserve the paper where it's at, and the water will flow to either side, staining the paper, but it will leave the marks you made with your crayons in place. Okay, so now that we have our crayon marks down, it's time to add our watercolor wash. Now, when you add watercolors on top of crayons or oil pastels, we call this a watercolor resist, because the crayons resist the water. And you'll notice when I add my water, it's not going to wash away the shapes and the lines that I drew in crayon. All right, so how do you use watercolors? You want to load up your brush with clean water, of course, and then go ahead and add it to your color of choice. Now, when you are using watercolors, it's important to make sure that you use enough water. So be sure to add a lot of water to your watercolor. So notice, it's called watercolor because we want the paint to act like water. You want the water to mix into your paint, but you want it to be nice and fluid. So if your paint is kind of sticky, then that means you need to add more water. You're going to want to add enough water until it maybe drips off your paintbrush or it looks watery. So go ahead and mix that water into your color so that color becomes nice and bold. And then we're simply going to add it onto our crayon marks. And as I mentioned, it's going to make a watercolor resist because the crayons are made out of wax. the water cannot wash away the wax. The wax resists the water of the watercolor. So we're going to go ahead and continue to fill in our paper with any color you'd like. If you'd like to switch colors, you may. You may use as many watercolors as you would like, but I would like to show you how to switch colors properly. Now, to switch colors properly, you don't want to go into your next color because then you will get your first color of paint into your second color of paint. Now, we want to always make sure that we wash our brush. Wash your brush, make sure it's nice and clean. Have either a paper towel or a rag nearby. Dab your paintbrush onto the towel, and you'll notice if your towel is clean, that means your paintbrush is clean. And then you are ready to move in to your next color. So I'm just adding some clean water to my second color. My second color here is blue. So notice I'm mixing the water into the color. And remember, if your color is kind of sticky, it's not very runny, then that just means you need to add more water. Remember, watercolor needs to be really thin and fluid-like, just like water. And now I'm going to continue to paint with my second color onto my paper. And you're going to notice I can mix colors. I can mix the paint right onto my paper if I want. Now I'm just going to continue to make my watercolor wash nice and fluid. So I'm just working back and forth, pushing the paint around, trying to get rid of any white of my paper. Now I think I'd like to go back and add some more purple. So I just cleaned off my paintbrush. Now I'm adding in some more purple paint. So that way I have some blue and purple watercolor kind of mixing on top of the crayon marks. I like the way that looks. So I'm going to go ahead and make sure that my watercolor wash is nice and that my watercolor is nice and even. So I'm going to go back and forth, making sure that there's no white left on my paper and that I am blending the color into the paper. All right, so now you see I have a bit of a mix of purple and blue for my watercolor resistant wash. So we're gonna go ahead and let it dry. And once it's done, you are all finished with your abstract artwork inspired by Julie Mehretu. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoy. Bye.